Welcome to Sports Talk Weekly. My name is Shaun Asprila Gariseb. This is yet a special edition. In October 2022, we had 3 wise men on this platform. On that occasion, we spoke about the start of football. The start of football, that time there was a lot of reservation considering the circumstances in which the football started. There was a hiatus of football activity in the country. On that occasion, Mr. Tovey Hoebeb, who represented the interest of the youth, Mr. Paul Ngolombe from Tura Magic and Oslen Kahiri, friend of our podcast, we said, and then they spoke about the little confidence they had, but as they also had this happiness in seeing football start. 6 months later, we have had football. Even on that occasion, when the national team was spoken about, it was scary to hear we were drawn with Cameroon. We only looked at us at the second place. Today we find ourselves on top of the table. Speaking of Abu Bakar, and things have faded. Last week, the national team has come so long that last week we had youngsters emerging from the league that is just concluding, and Abu Bakar is even called up. Today we have 3 gentlemen. I don't know if they are from the West, East, but I'm very sure they are from a very good place, and it's a sports fraternity. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome these 3 gentlemen. These are very key and important stakeholders in our football. These are people who are key in making this happen. Gentlemen, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation, Shaun.
Salomo Hei is on the right. Maybe I will allow them to introduce themselves so that we just get loose of these uptight things.
No, thank you, Shaun. Thank you for having me. My name is Salomo Hei. I'm the Executive Director of African Stars, and it's an absolute pleasure being given an opportunity to speak about football, especially with the journey that we've been on of football.
For you, Shaun, my name is Tovey Hoebeb. I am currently the league administrator of NFA Premier Football League, and also CAF Safety Security Officer, CAF Club Licensing Manager. So those are my portfolios. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, Shaun. Mabos Vries, the league director in NFA, responsible for the 19 leagues. I'm running the Namibia Premier Football League, as well as the Super League, FNB, and then also overseeing all the other 17 leagues that is played in Namibia. So actually I have a portfolio of 90 leagues. Apart from my international exposure, I'm a CAF and a FIFA match commissioner.
As you can hear, the first division is streaming live. The women's football is buzzing. The stars are aligning for Okaterandu, so much so that even in Africa they can see them now. But without wasting any time, we're going to get immediately into the Brave Warriors. Gentlemen, I just want your views on the chances of Brave Warriors in the Nations Cup. I think it's in Ivory Coast this year. Tovey, is in Ivory Coast? Are they the ones hosting the?
Yeah, the CAF has not yet decided on Ivory Coast because they will be doing another round of inspection.
Yes, but gentlemen, like starting with Salomo, I just want we stood little chance, as I was alluding earlier, that when the qualifiers were in sight, we were not even having local football, and it really looked difficult. Everything was here, or it was not here or not there. And it's very important, maybe before I forget, that I firstly congratulate African Stars for completing a very marvelous season, and then I also congratulate the leadership of our football for not only having football at the flagship level, but until at lower leagues. That's why we have a deliberate arrangement of people, and I'm very happy with our team that we are able to do this, so that we can thank you formally. We have been trying with other stakeholders to bring these kinds of information to people. So I was just saying, Salomo, that Namibia, when we started, everybody was not sure how we would do. What do you think of the boys? How far can we go in the Nations Cup?
Yeah, look, I think one has to give the technical team of the Brave Warriors a lot of. We have to applaud the work that they have done in terms of building this team. I remember that you correct in your assessment that at the time when we had our first game against Burundi. In South Africa, at the time, football had not kicked off here, right? And obviously we got a draw at the time. And I think you can see that there's a plan in terms of what Colin is doing. in terms of wanting to make sure that there is a gradual process in terms of if the elder players are moving out, there's an infusion of young talent coming in. That's why it's calling up a lot of the younger players, remember the under 20, under 23 players, and with the league currently in operating format, it's easier also to cast his net wider because he's got a bigger pool of players to choose from as previously. But over and above that, I think this time, in my view, I think we are almost over the line in terms of our qualification. If you look at the different scenarios that could come, I think the chances are really 99.9 for us not to qualify, in my view. But over and above that, he's got a plan, you can see. Obviously, we might not promise everything with him in terms of the selection of specific or certain players, but heavy the head that was the crown. So it's not easy at all.
Tovey, your thoughts?
Yes, I'm sharing the same sentiments with Salomo Hei in looking at the team. The formation that the coach is trying to do is to look into the future of Mabos Vries. It's not only to build a team that will just go and compete and then after there is no successional plan, but with the current squad, there's a plan in place. He's looking beyond 2027. So come this year, those boys can go and compete, but there is still lifeline. They can qualify for 2027. So it's the squad, as Salomo Hei was saying, that squad that they have called up even now, looking at Kosafa that is ahead, and then the next Burundi match that is in place in June. You can see that the coach is really having a plan, and we are only wishing him all the best with the youngsters that they have called up.
Possibly World Cup qualification. Mr. Vries, before you just continue to your views on the Brave Warriors, the national women's team is without the coach. Brave Warriors 5 years for the national coach. What is causing the lack thereof? Are there any plans to have a coach there? I mean, if the national team is doing well, the other teams, there must also be some sort of ripple effect.
Yeah, okay, yes, sure, your question is actually outside the jurisdiction, but I can probably give you a hint on that one. The NC is busy to appoint permanent staff, also at other national team levels, the seniors as well as the juniors, so it's a process that is ongoing. I think in the next month or two that will be finalized by the NC, but it's something that is in your jurisdiction on line, because our statute is very clear that the national team coaches are appointed by the executive committee, which is the NC in this case.
Are you in agreement that we can make it to the World Cup for the national team?
You see, actually, when Colin was appointed, he got a mandate over 5 years, and the plan or the vision from the NC side was that Colin should start developing the team and qualify for the 2027 AFCON. But he surprised everybody now that he's on the batch of qualifying now already for his first assignment, which is actually put himself in a very challenging position, because I am a believer who always says that each success brings a new challenge. So the main objective for him was to qualify for the 2027, but now already qualified. That means we can't even negotiate on that one. It's a must for him to qualify, because he is the one who set the bar for himself with our support.
Belief is something that we must have, but belief is also something that women's football definitely has. When football was in a break, women's football, or when football started, when we had Mrs. Julian Gariseb on this platform, they almost said that women's football never had problems, so they always wanted to play, they were always ready to play. I started watching women's football from the World Group. I think there was some fantastic stuff going on there. Mr. Vries, three-year contract with FNB. Girls are buzzing. Things are going well. Interestingly enough, I saw an 11-year-old playing for Maheke Queens. I just want to understand, for women's football sake, what have you picked up? Has there been an improvement considering where we were 5 years ago, where we are now?
Yes, for sure, there's definitely improvement. You know that us as football leaders, men especially, we never have that touch with the women's football in this country. And that's the first year that we've been thrown in the deep sea to start managing and control the women's football at that stage. There are a few challenges actually. I would say that the women's football is in a transition stage now, because as you said, the way they've been operating in the past was in an isolation area, but now I think broaden the scope of women's football, and that means that we need to start developing other aspects of football also in women's football, and that is something that we're envisaged to achieve in the next year or two from now on, so that we can also bring the Women's Super League on par with the Men's Super League. You
said scope. There's the representation of teams in the women's football. The southern region, the entire southern region, there's no team. Omaheke, there's one team. In the north, far north, there's only Ongwediva Queens. What can it be? What is maybe the reason why there are no teams in those areas? Maybe also by extension, also big clubs like African Stars, they do not have women's football teams. If you look at African Stars, Black Africa, Orlando Pirates, Blue Water, 11 Arrows has though, they are even doing very well. So what could be the, like with regard to representation?
Shaun, with my experience and involvement in football for nearly 40 years, the women's football is at the same stage where men's football have been some 35 years back. Why I'm saying that is that most of our clubs by then, even the Black Africa, Orlando Pirates, they've been represented by players who are staying outside Windhoek. These players have been traveling to come and play here in Windhoek or travel with the team. They will never be part of the training setup. It is the same scenario that I've experienced now in football. Most of our clubs, especially those Windhoek-based clubs, are making use of players outside Windhoek. And that is probably also the reason why you don't have teams in the specific regions that you mentioned. Because if I did my own study and I saw that most of the players, even in the national team, there are 50% plus from them coming from the south. So which means these clubs are luring those players come and play into Windhoek. It was the same scenario in the past. Even if you go back to the national teams, there's always an outcry of, yeah, the national team is Windhoek players. But 90% of those players came from outside Windhoek. They have been lured by and recruited by the clubs in Windhoek. And that's the same scenario. That's why I'm saying women's football also is in a transition period. And that's why we have to make sure that we will be the Women's Super League will be on par with the Super Premier League as well in the next 2 to 3 years.
You say you want it to be on par, and there's this sentiment in women's football that you don't get the same grants as the men's football.
Yeah, that's the reason. That's basically the reason why I'm saying they're in a transition period, because where we are with women's football, there's still a lot to do. The men's football have an advantage over the women's football. But it's not something that we are saying that we cannot achieve. But if I was talking about on par, that means that we need to have a stable, accountable, transparent, and progressive women's football league as well on that stage, on that level as the men's league, which means that players, women's soccer players, should also get a salary of a wage from the clubs, where the grants should be improved. So there is work in progress for ourselves, but at least we have a vision. We know where we want our women's Super League at the end of the day. And in the same way, we're also starting with our regional leagues now for women. So in all 14 regions, there will be regional leagues that at least 8 to 12 clubs. The leagues will consist of 8 to 12 clubs. So there's also work in progress. But that one is we already have the funds to start off. We're just liaising with the regional leadership there to start in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months with our own regional leagues as well.
Fantastic. The other thing was, is an 11-year-old allowed to compete against?
all the things boils down to transition that I'm talking about. Yeah, but she has a passion, but in football, Tovey, which is a master of club licensing, he will guide us on that one.
Yes, so that's a very good question. The 11-year-old is allowed, if he's a good player, to compete at any level. Our rules and regulations are clear. Our rules doesn't dictate that this player can only play in this certain level. But if the 11-year is capable to play against a 25-year-old and he's good, then he can appear. That's why you see in English Premier League or any other leagues that 17-year-olds are coming up and excel more than the guys that are there. So the 11-year-old is allowed. provided their guardians or parents are giving them that approval
No,
to go on.
I just thought there was an omission because looking at her, it looked almost as if the ball was bigger than her. But she's very. In fact, she's not the only one. There are maybe 3 of them on the same team.
Yes.
Yeah. But speaking about the regional leagues and feeder leagues, let's just go into the first division immediately. Tovey, you are part of the Southern Stream First Division. This league and leagues have done wonders. In lower leagues, and it's almost a good thing that the first divisions are doing very well. Because when the league started, like I was saying, when we spoke with those wise gentlemen, the concern was starting something when everything is not everything else is ready. Then you have a league, and then you don't have feeder leagues that are, to avoid those things. But we are here. It's good, despite the difficulties. We moved, and I would like to also extend my gratitude to how those lower leagues are in up north. Chula is doing very well. I want to also understand why teams like Chief Santos, your traditional big teams are now suffering against those small teams, or new teams, so to speak. Chula or Chicago Chiefs is a team, it's another team, and then there's Okakarara Warriors. Okakarara Warriors, they in touch and go are going head to head. And here in the Southern Stream, Nampol had almost secured the league before it ended. But Tovey, I want to understand from you. I've spoken to a few people that are in the first division. I myself went to watch a few games, fantastic games. Dates, what the team, try again, what the team. I watched this few quality is there, few things need to be done. I want to understand what were you doing right. I even saw that you were streaming matches. What were you doing right? And okay, unfortunately, I did not have the benefit of watching far north, but from what we gather, you can see the organization is well.
Yes. No, first of all, what we have done is, with the assistants and the directives from the director, we have first formed a chairman's forum for the free leagues, whereby the free chairpersons of the three first divisions get together and plan everything together. So that was the first good thing that we have done, because in past, everybody was operating in isolation. So to bridge the gap, we have decided to bring everybody on the table and say, this is the vision that we want to move up the first divisions. And then from the Southern Stream side, being the leader and being the front runner, we have also given them our plans, per se, because with Southern Stream, what we have done is we have followed the statutes to the letter. What the statutes demands from us is to have an AGM before the start of the league. That's what we have done, and table our visions and table our plans to the members. And if you can see the Southern Stream features, it's the features that we have adopted in our AGM that we are following up to date. That's why this upcoming weekend there is no features, because it was a FIFA week. That's why we have not featured anything. But next weekend there will be matches of Southern Stream, and these are the things that we have done. And also what we have done is Southern Stream have brought me in as acting league administrator. We have also bring in Ronnie Karoib as a marketing officer, so to boost the image and the brand of Southern Stream. And also the others have followed suit, and they have bring on people on board. That's why you see we are more visible in the public domain. So with that, that's the only improvements that we have bring in. And then others is the assistance that we have get from FA, which is being paid on time, getting our funds on time, and releasing our funds on time to the clubs.
With the Southern Stream, as well as other lower divisions, I spoke with some few people that are obviously competing in this league. They rightfully, like with the Southern Stream, it's the first time that the first division is even having this level of media coverage, which is a good thing. But some teams will just have the sentiment that the media officer is based in the south. So most of the games that are covered are only in the south. But other concerns they had were, and it's a concern that I find is common in lower leagues. They say there's a shortage of balls. For example, they say teams have 5 balls, and then they deliberately, when leading, they flatten 3 balls. So when they flatten 3 balls, this can even happen while this is a relegation match. For example, or this is crucial 3 points. 3 points are always crucial. So they say they flatten 3 balls and then they drag with the 2 balls. Like this, they waste time. So these things, when they are reported, Do they come to your desk? Are you aware of them? Because these things it's all three streams of first divisions say they have this problem. And then the other thing was an alternative kits. Teams are saying they do not have alternative kits, especially in the southern stream, where most teams, I think these people only know blue and yellow as a color, because many teams are blue and white. Yeah. So those are some of the sentiments that they share. What do you make of that? In the northern stream, they have a very, very big issue with referees not traveling, but it's something that was addressed in the second round, they say, even in the southern stream. Referees, something that is a problem until the Premier League. They were not a problem as per se. Talking about referees will take us the whole day, but I'm just saying people raising concerns about referees.
Yes, no, the challenges were raised pertaining to the referees, and we have really improved on that, because now the referees have been rotated. Because firstly, we are only looking at the budget, we're only using the local-based referees, but we have started rotating the referees from this town to that town, and that has become something of the past. Because the challenge when it was raised, we have addressed it. In terms of the balls and things that you are mentioning, in Southern Stream, we have not really experienced that, because what we have done with STARTCO, we have put up match observers at all the matches. So wherever the matches are played, there is match observers that can take decisions on the ground and ensure that the match is played. They are actually doing the match coordination on that particular day. So with Southern Stream, in terms of balls and ball boys, if they see these ball boys are not they are not throwing the balls in time, they go and address with the ball boys and tell them, you are not here as that club, you are here to make sure that the game is moved. And that, with that, we have ensured that all our matches are played, fair and also on time. You can see with Southern Stream, when a match is scheduled for 12, they start 12, and that's how we have ensured that there will be match observation. And my director can also attest to that. He have been there, he have also go and watch matches in South and see what we can do on the ground.
Before I go on to some, what is the situation with the second divisions? Is the promotion there towards the first divisions? How is that happening there?
Yes, the promotion relegation has been announced prior to the league kickoff, and we as we have also informed our members that at the end of the season there will be relegation of teams. It's unfortunate as the things stands currently in the top tier league. The three teams that are currently at the bottom are Southern Stream based, and if they are relegated to Southern Stream, that means Southern Stream will be forced to relegate 4 teams in order to accommodate the 3 that is coming down, because with the 3 and the 2 that must be promoted, we need 5 spaces. So as the thing stands, Black Africa, 11 Arrows and Citizens will come and occupy the current 3 spaces. That is now the Commerce Nambo that is going to the top tier, and then the 2 last teams. But now we have 2 teams that must come from Commerce, Erongo, Hardap, and Omaike in Karas. So those 5 second divisions must have playoffs, whereby 2 teams will be promoted to fill the 2 gaps. So that's why we'll be relegating 4 teams, promote 1 to accommodate all 5.
In the same way, it's very important that it's also been communicated to the clubs, so they are well aware of it. It's not something that have been cooked on the journey.
Yes, before they kickstart.
Before we go into that, I can address a question from my director to Mabos. The main thing is the Premier League. I just want to, before we speak of the Premier, which is the flag league, I want to ask Gaza, why did you not bring that trophy so that we can just put it here, so that we can just show? I mean, we must honor the people for what they've done. It has been good.
in fact, Shaun, I thought you would have a trophy here because things at the soccer house.
We are sitting with the people. Yeah, but we really have to go into the Premier League. And, Mr. Mabos, I have to ask you this. This is the question is as such. The MPFL is a child of the NFA, and it is run from the soccer house by the league director, which obviously is you.
Yes, sir.
This has not set very well with the chairpersons of the clubs who constitute the chairman's forum. What are the chances of full powers being given to the league chairpersons to run their own affairs in the next season? What would be the problem if that had to happen now, why would the NFA NC be reluctant to hand power back to the clubs? That is the first part of the question.
Thank you for that question. I have been expecting somebody to ask me that question for the following reasons. I've been in the MPL for 11 years. Now, I'm always telling people, for those 11 years, with the management committee, with the board of governors, NPC have spent over 150,000 in the MPL. Going back today, where is the legacy of that investment? It was the same people, and with all due respect I say that, there was the same people, the same clubs who was in charge of making decisions on behalf to ensure that the league grows, but where do we end at the end of the day? But it's the same people. So I will say, let's go back to the drawing board. What is the objective of saying, let's run the league ourselves? To do what with? You have the chance. I have been in the MPL for 11 years. So it was the same process. Now you want us to go back to do what better? Let's first sit down, strategize and say, okay, for the following objectives, to reach the following objectives, there is the route that we must go. Then I will start buying into it. But just to make an open statement and say, let's be given back our responsibilities or so that we can run the league ourselves, I will not buy into it. But if we can sit down as a colleagues, let's work out a strategy. Because initially, the strategy was to have the league for 3 years in the NFA. Because the history we are coming from, the conflicts was there, just also to face all those challenges and conflicts was there and ensure that we're the united members in the league, and then we can face them out. So there was a 3 years plan. But due to all this historical stuff that have taken place for a year, we are not here yet. We have started with the UEFA coming in to assist us so that we can start with the process to roll out and see that we can be self-sustainable at the end of the day and so on. But that process has been stalled for now due to the other commitments that come up. But once we start with that process and that basis that the UEFA have given to us, then I can think we are definitely on the right road to say that the league can be self-sustainable and self-run by the members themselves over a period of 1 year or 2 years. But it is something that must be planned for.
So it must be planned for now.
But just in addition on that, Shaun, getting something to run something, it's a good thing. You can ask that to get back. But what are you doing with what you are having? They have clubs, and these clubs run on a level that one can say, no, these people, when they take over NPL, they will do better. Besides African Stars, if you look at the other teams, I don't point fingers to any other team, but if you look at the teams, the way they are run by a single person. If that person is not around, the team doesn't function. Look at Citizens where they are today. They were in the top tier league. So giving this responsibility of 16 teams to the clubs back, it will never do in this country. Because coming up next season, because end of this month, we will be going to Angola for club licensing workshop, which is the final workshop before we go on to online club licensing. And these teams will be forced to apply online for club licensing. And we have to license them to play in the top tier league. And I'm telling you, there are 5 pillars that the teams must adhere to. That's sporting, personnel, infrastructure, legal, and finance. Will they meet these requirements? Hardly. And I'm telling you, if we enforce this, we will only end up with 1 team in the top 10. And then seven other teams from the lower division, which I know they can meet these requirements.
I think in 2010 or something like that. But anyways,
yeah, but maybe just because it's an important issue, it affects all of us as the league and as clubs. Now, it's really a model that's been spoken about in terms of which model are we going to use. This is the association model that's currently being implemented, right? and perhaps rightfully so because of where we are coming from in terms of what the director and Mr. Hoebeb is speaking about in terms of the challenges that we had. So in one form or the other, we did get to a point where we are now. Now, there's been issues around clubs currently about wanting more money, there's not being enough, there's not any other, and so many other issues. Now, the current model, right, is a grant model, if it were, right? And what Tovey is speaking about in terms of what are the clubs doing in terms of making sure they can meet the obligations outside of the grant, right? Then there's the other model, which is what we perhaps had previously, but not in its entirety, because remember the NPL was still subject to the NFA at the time. Ideally, what you want is perhaps a model where the league is professionalized, right? And perhaps this is what's being said without, at times, not really understanding what that means. You see, because you can't just professionalize. What professionalization, the issues that Tovey is speaking about, comes into play, which are those criteria. In clubs who have obligations, there will be a matrix that they have to tick the boxes. And through that, the issue of little money, right, it even becomes a bigger challenge for clubs. Because then clubs have to pay a certain amount of salaries for
baselines.
Yes. So what you would have is, we know that the construction industry pays a minimum wage of this amount of money. So football would have to move to that level where you have to pay this amount of money. Failure to do that, you will be held accountable. You would have to get these clubs as legal entities, right? So that when the game is commercialized and professionalized, clubs will be held accountable. One will be able to say, when African Stars does not pay a specific player the minimum wage, then that player can take African Stars to the labor court, right? But they would know who is legally responsible for African Stars, whether it's Salomo Hei, because it's a director, he appears on the Articles of Association. The issue is that how many clubs even have Articles of Association? There's no understanding that it cannot be done, but there are certain milestones that need to be made for us to get there. So it's not something that should be said in passing. Like, no, we must get the football back, I'm the chairperson of this club, we must run the club. It's a governance issue. And in the absence of governance, we'll always have these overlapping issues that are coming through. And at times, to disadvantage the game, and then we get to a point again where we are stopped for 2 years, people are fighting. So what is important is to make sure that the governance are in place. Once the governance is in place, you then have to hold specific people responsible for specific outcomes, specific obligations, specific responsibilities. This is how you bring about the certainty. This is how you'll be able to optimize the product.
Just to end the show, actually, what Gaza have said is that we will not accommodate community clubs. Yes. People will be accountable and responsible for the entity, the club or the entity. We will not deal with community clubs anymore. And that is, when Tovey talking about club licensing, that is the driving force behind becoming professional at the end of the day. You have to meet those requirements. So are we ready for that now? Or you say, colleagues, let's start working on it so we can, in the next year, because NFA will come up with the requirements and say, okay, from these 5 pillars, 3 or 4 should be met immediately before we start. So you as a club, you have to register and tick those boxes off. So once you start ticking off, you will be held accountable for that if you're not meeting those requirements. So that means that clubs, this easy right story will be out by then. Because everybody wants to see a professional league, but we are too much on easy rights. And I know there are clubs, they are definitely doing a lot now. If you can, I can take an example of Tigers nowadays. The attendance of Tigers is probably 300-400% now that you have been last year October and now. So there are clubs who are doing the almost best to start improving on the operational side.
I mean, when you speak of community clubs, I almost want to say it's a mentality thing. Recently there was letter circulating from teams that people like I really love dearly, and then it was repudiated in the right way, where it is not the responsibility of the FA to secure sponsorship. Now, in the corridors of football or in the football fraternity, people, even on the first division level, we all know they say the grant is not enough and whatnot. How do we run the clubs? And so, does this model allow for clubs to go and secure their own financial sponsorship?
Yes, the FA is not managing clubs. We are only managing the league. That's where it ends. Now, it's more about perception. The responsibility of the league is that to go out and fund sponsorship for the league, for the activities. So we are playing the league. So from their sponsorship, what the league are doing is that to assist the clubs to ensure that they can honor that commitment that the game should be in place. That is the responsibility of the league. Now, the clubs also have that share, where they can go out and find sponsorships. Because even when, as far as ensuring that chess branding belongs to the clubs, so that they can easily go out and find sponsorship. Because in the past we had that argument about chess branding. We said no, internationally it's a standard. It is the club's responsibility to have a sponsor, and that part is for a club sponsor. So from the FA side, all we are saying is that we are only managing the transition process of the league to become a professional league. That's what we are doing.
The model, the association model, it not maybe because of the circumstances it started in, and you tell us now, there was no AGM when the league started. Many teams, I understand, or few teams, some teams, few teams, many teams, whichever word is correct, did not sign the promotion relegation guidelines. We are going to believe this, so could this not be a problem come the end of the season? Some people are mumbling that there is still a Khasi.
I need to rest from the individual. Is that I have experienced that 96+% of our football people doesn't know the football rules. That's the first thing. Because why I'm saying that is that because they are not reading the rules and coming up with the issue of saying that they have to sign off. Our statutes and rules are very clear. The responsibility is for the executive to work out the promotion relegation method for a particular season before the season kicks off. When we send out these notifications or the communication, we always ask the clubs to acknowledge the seat they are off. If you don't acknowledge that, they have nothing to do with say that this you are invalidating that promotion relegation. Because it's not in your area of jurisdiction. It's a responsibility of the executive committee, and they do that. So the issue of no promotion relegation, let's stop that story. Whoever will be promoted will be promoted, whoever will be relegated will be relegated. Finish it club.
Quickly there, sorry, now just one minute, one shot. So you're saying you didn't sign off, but you played?
Yeah.
So which is which now?
You move it yourself.
And received grants.
You can't have your cake. It's either.
You see, by virtue of being associated, your association of NFA, that already makes you part of this process of NFA. So if NFA said at the end of the season there is promotion relegation, you are subjected to it. There is no two ways. If NFA said there is no promotion relegation, then it is. So that's the only thing. Your association, because this NFA is a federation, you are associated member. You are associating yourself with NFA. Not NFA being associating you as a club. You are the club that came to NFA to participate under NFA rules and regulations. And you are subjected to it. That's what our members forget.
Just before we move the shine on African stars, I want us to just, Mr. Priest, there are two pending issues of teams not attending to matches.
The non-arrival.
Yeah, the non-arrival or not honoring matches. But that situation, will it be solved before the league is over?
Yes, that's what we're pushing for sure. On the one case, I'm conflicted, so I accused myself on that one. The pilots versus the life others. So the other colleagues of mine are working on both cases. So I'm not part and parcel of that.
Thank you. Gaza, now we want to speak about African stars. I want to understand when you are sitting, Tovey will also understand when you are sitting almost in a class. And in a class, you are the only one who is well prepared, and then the rest is almost dragging. How does it feel? You are in a space where sometimes obviously you sympathize with those teams that may be struggling financially. There was also said that some teams were not prepared when the league started. Stars was prepared. Preparation is not something I can blame anyone for. It's up to you to prepare. Being champions in this kind of way, I see you are branding out. You are having new nice things. Even I want to wait sometimes so that I can buy it away sometimes. Because you see, you are going to represent us at continental stage. What is it? Stars, tell us.
Yeah. So once again, thank you for the kind words, Shaun. But what is equally important is that let's go backwards in terms of where we started. And this whole preparation thing that people speak about, that stars were already prepared and whatnot and whatnot. Remember that as we moved into this league, it was a league lead, right? It was a transition league or whatever, league it was great, right? African stars did not participate in that league, right? Teams participated in that league, specific teams. I think it's African stars, life fighters.
Like African
No, it's African stars, UNA, life fighters, and Wakanda United that were not playing during that league. So we couldn't have been more prepared than the other teams because the other teams had played, right? We were running an academy at the time, a youth academy. Remember that we also ended up going to court or Opsol because we didn't want us to play because of our. So we tried having our activity was really just based on the youth. Then, when the conversation started in terms of football now has to start, we have to find a common ground despite the differences that existed at the time. We had a good look at ourselves and say that, look, to what extent do we put the interest of the game ahead of what the squabbles were at the time? And given the roadmap that the director and Mr. Hoebeb is speaking about in terms of the club licensing and all of these things, all of this was part of the discussion at the time. We then saw the light to say that, look, this is essentially what African stars have been fighting for, to be able to move to the next level, to be able to make sure that we take Namibia to the next level. So when we saw that there's now sponsor on board, there's a structure that appears to the association model in terms of the whole play. That's when we started getting our ducks in order. Right? Obviously, we had a plan, Shaun, we had a plan in terms of specific metrics that we looked at to say that this is what we want to achieve within the season. And at all material times, where the metrics fell behind, we had a conversation with the technical team to say that, look, colleagues, this is the metrics that we have, this is the objectives that we have, this is the outcome that we want to achieve. And we have been following this to the T. If you speak about our marketing component of the game, I mean, I think that African stars always had the numbers, right? But it needs to be packaged. And this is what we have done. We've packaged this product of ours in a manner that now we can sell it. I mean, remember that before football stops, we win the league, the preseason, and then Black Africa wins the league thereafter. Already at that time, we were embarking on the merchandise. We were already selling shirts, right? Then obviously when the league stops, and remember that again, we had a plan of going into Africa. And we had a 3-year plan for Africa at that time. So the first season, we beat the team from Comoros, and then we lose against Pirates. Very, very difficult.
Yes.
Remember that we threw in Johannesburg, and then we came to lose to some lousy goal here. And then we went to Morocco for the playoff in the conference. Yeah, and then we also lost that. But valuable lessons that we took from there at the time. The second season, we played against the team from Uganda, KCCA. And in my view, an Namibian team, and I say this with all due respect, should not be losing against it from Uganda because of the talent that we have. And remember that we beat KCCA 3-2 here right, after trailing 2-0. So when you come back from football and you win 3-2, and we thought that, look, on the football playing side, we could be better than this team, so we can go to Uganda and get the result. We led until maybe the 84th, 86th minute. That's when Uganda basically scored their first goal, ended up beating us. Then the 3-year plan is then derailed. So it's just 2 years that we attempt to do what we want to do. So now when we get to this, we are better prepared in terms of the lessons that we have learned from those 2 African safaris that we engaged in, right? So we know what we want. We know the profile of the player that we want. We know the youth profile of the player that we want. So when we are putting this monster together, this monster that comes and we now, where you don't even have to just want to have trophy here. But it was with all that in mind, having seen, having been on that journey, having understood what it means. A Dynamo Fredericks, when they get a Dynamo Fredericks, we don't get a Dynamo Fredericks by chance. You saw what Dynamo Fredericks did against Cameroon. You see, imagine the Dynamo Fredericks in Africa. I will lost the finals. Is perhaps a generational talent in terms of him being part of the most successful era of Namibian football and him being a central part of that. So he knows what it's about. So when you get him into a structure like African Stars, where the objectives are clear, there are matrices, what we want to achieve. You know, the biggest young talent in the country, Chuluka Mastuka, you've been tracking him for how long? He was at Rangers, you've been speaking to him. He comes into the African Stars team. He knows what the ambition of the African Stars team is. And it has not been a smooth sailing journey as well for us. Remember that we lost 4 players at the beginning of the second half. Yeah, the goalkeeper was in the national team, was being called Coco, you know, fanfare and Coco, we get Coco from Turameji, big talent. Penova, Kanji, the left back, played all the others, you know, so there was a bit of a wobble during the season. Obviously, you did not observe it because we are able to manage some of these things in a manner that it doesn't become a crisis. But the point is that there's been a lot of hard work that has gone into the season that we had. It's not something that will happen overnight. And that's why I'm taking you back to the journey that we have walked and the journey that we arrive at getting the players that we have, the character, the profile, and the gap. Because remember, Africa is not only about talent. You need people that can compete at certain level, and it comes with heart. And this is why I think going into the Africa campaign, and I hope that by the time we are working behind the scenes to make sure at least we can try and play those games at home. Because if we do that, Shaun, we stand a good chance.
Kaza, it's almost tangible how excited you are for playing in Africa. I saw when you won the league with some games to spare, your champion was held aloft and he was almost affirming that you are going to play in Africa. But there's this sentiment, and this is where even the association comes in. I was reading through the guidelines of CAF Championship. Infrastructure is an issue. In Namibia, we know at national level. How prepared is Stars? Are you aware that you might be required to play outside the country? And we know Champions League does not come easily. It is very costly to participate in this league. Are you going to have any financial assistance from government, or are you planning on, if you secured your own financial, you were there, you know the financial implications, or are you just merely participating? Is it feasible to participate and just go out while using that amount of money?
Yeah, so, and this is why when we were narrating the journey, towards the end I was speaking to the director, Mr. Hoebeb, because they are the ones that they have to put forward the Namibian case in terms of infrastructure for African participation. We are well aware of the challenges that exist. I mean, there's no way that you can have an independent stadium in that state. If you look at where the independent stadium is situated, right? You've got the rugby stadium on that side. You've got a swimming pool on that side. You've got DTS within that radius. You've got the speed avenue within the radius. And all of these facilities use water It's a basis for making sure that food is in a certain condition, right? And it's almost lack of accountability management why the thing goes backwards. It's not an issue of infrastructure in the sense that we understand infrastructure, right? Because when you speak about infrastructure, it's services, it's the facility itself in terms of its physical form. So the facility is there, but the management thereof is the problem. Because if you can have the rugby stadium, the SPW, TTS, and a swimming pool in terms of the water incubation process, in that particular areas, it speaks to a problem of management and accountability and responsibility. And what we are saying is that there are specific requirements that CAF impose on teams to be able to participate in Africa. And those are the requirements that we have started working with the big director and Mr. Hoebeb. There are specific things that we are looking at. We are looking at possible 2 or 3 fields that perhaps we could look at before we explore playing outside. I think that's the one thing that we will not even want to consider at this stage. So it's work in progress. We are very much aware of what the requirements are in that respect. Your next question, in terms of the war chest that we need to have to participate in Africa, we've got plans in place. We have learned the lessons. One of the things that we would be having is not just confirming that we will have the end of the year function as African Stars, and at the end of the year function will obviously be a capital raising exercise. Capital raising exercise in the context that perhaps we would want Shaun and the team here to buy a table for a certain amount of money to attend the event. We will be inviting corporates, so we will do a very corporate engagement, because remember that once you play in Africa, it's not only African Stars, it's also you're getting the flag. But what is really exciting for us, Shaun, is that if you look at teams like Sundowns and you look at it, they are starting to dominate the continent in terms of Africa, in terms of African football. When you look at our 2 games against Cameroon, you're starting to see there's a bit of a shift in what has been the dominant factors in African football over a certain period of time. Previously, we were really hung up on this physicality and all of that. But we are moving towards highly technical players now again, coming back in a very strong way. And this is where we thrive on, that's the Southern region. We have players, we've got players that can move the ball quick, that's able to manipulate space. And this is where we see Sundowns dominating West African teams, right? And we are leveraging on what is it that they are doing right, that a team like African Stars can leverage on. You look at the breakaways, you look at the size. There was a player from AC Milan, and they are in the semi-final of the Champions League. They played at a big, strong guy.
Andre Frank.
Yes,
his name.
Yeah. So you look at how we were able to compete against those players. I'm not saying we are the same level with an AC Milan player, but I'm saying when it becomes 11 against 11, it's a different story. But the point I'm making is that we are leveraging some of the successes that Sundowns has in terms of playing style and how to perhaps beat a team from West Africa and even North Africa. Not the season, I think previous season, we had a team joining Galaxy where Marshall, Papama, and Wendell Lusafi are playing. They made it to the group stages. Yes. And African Stars, given the profile that we have in the region, I think we should be able to aim for that. Botswana has been to how many Nations Cup? We've been to how many Nations Cup? In terms of football success. Do you remember with this?
Yes.
So that's really the sort of encouragement and motivation that's driving the African Stars.
On that note, as I thank you, gentlemen, we also hope teams like Blue Waters take the lead should they end up second. And we would like to congratulate you and wish you well. Also to your coach, we see some of the requirements is also the coaches to be licensed. Should Blue Waters or any team that ends second be interested in the Confed Cup, you are the ones who make the application. We also wish them well. Thank you, Mr. Vries. Thank you, Mr.
No,
President.
thank you, Joseph.
And thank you to Salomo Hei.
Yeah.
Next time, you must bring the trophy.
Okay.